Hey everyone, Sandra here, Hummingbird Hall. I am a clothing reseller. I sell new and used clothing on multiple platforms, and welcome to my channel. Today I am following up on the first conversation I had with all of you, which is about New Year's resolutions versus implementing process or structure to your business, your goals, that may be more achievable. And so I'm walking over to my warehouse right now, and it's sunny right now, but I woke up to a lot of frost outside, so it's pretty cold this morning, but it's feeling pretty good right now. And I thought I'd take you along and talk more about, what is the plan for these next few months? And one of the things I realized is that after going over my goals and my processes yesterday, I realized it's not going to take as much time as I thought. So originally, my thought was that I would take one process each quarter. So January, February, March, pick a process, work on it until I have it really dialed in, right? And then check my progress and then move on to the next process. And what I realized after, a little bit of pen to paper is that it's really not going to take me that long for the first two processes. So just to, recap what I was thinking yesterday is the first process I want to address is intake. How do I streamline intake of inventory so that I don't create piles of mess everywhere, and so that I can get things, processed, washed, cleaned up, ready for resale much more quickly. So that's number one. Number two is, how do I stop the piles happening? So maybe it's something where I saw a stain when I went to put it up on the board to photograph that I didn't see earlier. So I think I could probably get that stain out, and that'll be a better item to sell. So what happens is, and sometimes I don't notice it, that's the problem. I don't notice it until I put it up on the board. So what happens is I put these items aside and I think I'm going to fix that later. And then what happens is I continue on with my day. I get all my photographs done, get my listings done, and then I'm tired. I mean, that's really probably the issue. Or something bigger on my priority list pops up, and I go to address that instead. And so at the end of the day, I leave all those items piled up somewhere. And do I go back in the next morning and fix those? No, I go with my priority list. And my priority list is always to make sure items are photographed and listed, right? That's number one. But I need to get these other items higher up on the priority. So I think that is less of a huge process to implement, and it's more about creating some habits. And I was thinking about, I don't do this in other parts of my life really. I do my dishes every day, right? I make my bed every morning. I do the laundry. It seems like I do laundry all the time, but I do the laundry. I put everything up. I mop the floors, right? If I think about my personal life, I handle these tasks whether I really enjoy them or not. I handle these tasks on a daily basis because they're just a habit that I have put into my day. Unless it's something I really don't like doing, or I need to think about how I'm going to handle it. So one of the things in my personal life that I don't like doing is dealing with the mail that piles up, right? You get all this mail that it's just, advertising or marketing, or it's not really anything you have to deal with. But I don't want to just throw it in the trash. I want to shred it. So that tends to pile up. And I think some of that behavior is happening in my business. So let's go on into the studio and we'll talk about this a little bit more. All right, everyone, I'm in the studio, and This is like my mini warehouse. I'm super happy to have it, but it's about 500 square feet. It's not a big space. If you think about a comparison would be maybe a 2.5 car garage is about the size of my warehouse. But I'm super thankful for it, and I'll just give you a little tour. I've got a good inventory system. We keep everything up to date. I use that like infinite numbering system, which works really well. I love that. But then if you start to look around the studio, you will see this, right? You will start to see piles. And these piles stack up. This pile is right by the door. And initially it was right by the door, so I would deal with it every day, but I didn't deal with it. I just let these things pile up. And so I think my very first process is to go to zero every day, right? Set back to zero at the end of the day. So if I walk you through, you're going to see I have everything organized. I like to know exactly where my inventory is, and I like to be able to quickly grab items. I don't like to lose items, but I hang things that I want to do something with if I think there's something that needs to happen there. And then here's the big pile. Here's the big pile of mess that I have. And this is so you see 3 areas in my studio where I am just creating these death pile project items. So if you walk over here with me, what you'll see here is this is my photo booth area. And this is where I stack the items that I'm going to list each day. And then you just follow the path around. It's just a circle. And here is where I will package the items, put a SKU number on it, and then I put it in a box that's ready to go right into my inventory system. So this process is set up. It works very well for me. I've been super happy with it. But like I said in my last video, I've taken a lot of time to work on this and, kind of dial in this process. So it works great. I don't change it. And what I notice is on this process, every day at the end of my photographing, I clean everything up. I add new bags. If I need more bags, I put a new box out. I stack my items here that I'm going to process tomorrow. So there's a completion that happens here. But what happens during my photographs is I see something that maybe I didn't notice when I initially washed the item or prepped it, but I notice it once I put it on the photograph board. There's a hole, maybe the seam is torn a little bit, a button is missing, things that I think would be super simple fixes that would improve the quality of the item. So what do? I just toss it right here. I toss it right here, and I think I'm gonna fix that later. I don't fix that later. I finish my shift, right? I finish my photographing, and then I want to go get my items ready for listing. So instead of addressing the pile, I clean up my photograph station because I want to make sure I'm ready to photograph tomorrow. And I make sure all my bags are ready so I have a nice, really clean system, but I don't deal with this. So I don't think this process is going to take 3 months. I think this process is really just fixing some bad habits, right? Fixing some habits where I deal with this and I set this to 0 every week. That is the goal. But the first goal today is going to be to clean up this pile. And I think once I get that done, then I need to implement some processes. And I've thought about, what is that going to look like for me? What does that process look like so this doesn't happen again? So the first thing is going to be clean all this up, organize it into what type of repairs I need, or put it away. So here's another thing that happens. And if you're a reseller, I'm really curious if you do this as well. Somebody will reach out to me on one of the platforms and they have a question about the size or measurements, or, sometimes it's asking for an additional picture. So I will pull the item, and I think I have one in here where I did this. Yeah, I do, right here. I will pull the item like this. I will pull it out, take pictures, and then do I put the item away right away? No, I just toss it on my pile like, oh, I'm going to deal with that in a few minutes. And then I never do. I also have another little pile over here. My second week process is I pull the item and then I put it back on this table so it's closer to where the inventory is, but I don't actually put it away. So my number one process improvement for my repair death piles is going to be to clean up this area right here today. That's the goal. Get this all out of the way, make sure that I'm set to 0. And then after that, my goal is going to be every day when I finish my photographs, I also address the pile. I address the pile, whether it's going to be to file it away or it's going to be to put it into a category of repairs, or it's to decide it's just not worth repairing and I have to do something else with it. Yuck. All right. Well, part of my journey on this channel is to keep myself accountable and to, dialogue with all of you and see if these are some of the issues that you also face. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my camera over in the corner, and I'm just going to work through this pile and take you along for the ride and see how long it takes me to get done. All right, I will talk to you in a minute. Check it out. So the table is completely clean. I got rid of that death pile of issues. I've taken all of the items that need to be put back into inventory. I've stacked those, so I'll file those away. And the interesting thing out of that is I actually ended up having quite a few items that needed to be photographed and listed that was in that pile. So they were just sitting there as like an unknown death pile. So I'm super excited about that. Now the goal is every day at the end of my photographing, anything that I've pulled aside for whatever reason, I just address it right then and we set back to 0. So what I'm going to do is on anything that's a quick fix, I want to make sure that I address that every Friday. So on Friday morning, that will be one of the first tasks I do before I do my photographs. And that way I have a schedule, and every week I know those items are going to get done and then they're going to go right back into the photograph pile. And then for the items that need additional repair, that upcycle level, I'm going to put those into a container that I address every month. And I think I'm going to do it on the 1st of the month. It's just a great way to start the month, get those items repaired or upcycled in some way, and then move them on so that they are out of landfills and being used. So this has been a great process repair, and I really encourage you in your reselling to take a look at anything that you're doing where you touch an item multiple times. If you are, just stop what you're doing and look at how you can fix that process or implement a process. And I think it will, pay dividends to you in the long run, just in time and stress and being more efficient in your business. So with that, I think we have our first process well underway, and I will keep you up to date on how that's going for me and make sure that I don't slip back into those bad habits that create these big piles. All right, number 2 on my list is the process of how to pull inventory in and make sure that I'm not creating a huge mess there. And as I mentioned in the last video, a lot of what I source is wholesale, and wholesale is a beast. So if you haven't done wholesale before, I definitely encourage you to stick around and go through this journey with me, because there are challenges there that you don't face in normal go out to a thrift store, go to a garage sale type sourcing. But I think for today, I'm going to end the video here. I'm going to get to my photographs for the day and, keep my regular day-to-day business going. I feel like I had a huge success in my first process. And then in my next video, we're going to go all in on what does it mean to source through wholesale, and how do I put a process in place that's going to generate a more effective, efficient streamline. What does that structure look like, and how do I make that better for, me, my family, and of course, just my business. So thank you so much for hanging in there with me today, and I will see you on the next one.